Yo, what is going on, guys? Membro here, back at it with another college football weekly podcast. Final week of college football, at least until kind of the postseason. And championship weekend, we got a lot to go over. First, I want to go over the big news today, and that is the CFP committee choosing the 4 teams that will be in. So, yeah, I got used to it coming out on Tuesdays that I forgot that this week it comes out today on Sunday. So let's bring you guys over there. Yeah. All right, here we go. So it's Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and Ohio State for the CFP championship. So despite TCU losing in their championship game, despite Ohio State losing in their last game of the regular season and, being eliminated from the Big 12 or Big 10 championship, those teams both get in. And I just like what a wild, last little week there. And I think the committee got it right. I think they got it right. There can be some questions to be had between should Ohio State be number 3 or should TCU be number 3. But really, that's, I think either way, I don't think the committee wanted there to be an Ohio State versus Michigan semifinal. You know what would be crazy though, and I think I kind of a little hoping that would happen, is an Ohio State versus Michigan national championship. That'd be even bigger than like Alabama and Georgia when they played in the national championship. That would be the ultimate matchup. I think that Ohio State Michigan is the biggest, to me, it's the biggest rivalry in college football. So much history and all of that. But let's see if they have all the official rankings out yet. I don't know if they do. Let's go to they just have playoff predictor. Yeah, I don't know if they've revealed. I know they've revealed that Alabama is number 5 and Tennessee is number 6. I don't know if they have revealed the full top 25 yet. It's still kind of coming in as predictions, so maybe I'll do a little bit of a video after we see that. But I think the committee did get it right, and I think just going straight into it, my prediction is it's going to be Georgia and Michigan. Look, Georgia and Michigan, if they had Ohio State again, iffy. But I think they can handle TCU. I mean, no disrespect to TCU. They played great, and hats off to them. They came into the season unranked, definitely the most surprising team of the year. Came into the season unranked and blew through everyone, or I wouldn't say blew through everyone, but was able to beat everyone in the Big 12. Just a disappointing game against Kansas State. And it wasn't really like that one was a blowout like some other game with USC. We'll get into that, USC and Utah, in a second. But Michigan and Georgia are able to handle their championship games. And even if Michigan and Georgia had lost, I think they still would have been in, and that was still the case for TCU. Look, I think this year would have been a really good year to have a 12-team playoff, because you still have teams like Tennessee, Alabama. Hey, have Utah go in there. USC. Let's see what Tulane can do. Hats off to Tulane. I think they won their first American Conference championship yesterday against UCF. You'd have maybe LSU. You'd have maybe Penn State, ACC champion Clemson. Who knows what they could do? I think that'd be kind of. I think this year would be a really interesting year to have a 12-team playoff. But look, they got the 4 teams in with just either no blemishes or just one, and that was And I think it was the right pick to put Ohio State above. Look, they have a great win against Penn State. I believe they're going to be like number 8, maybe even number 7. Maybe USC. I don't know. We'll see where Penn State ends up ranked. Great win against Penn State on the road. And their loss is against Michigan, the number 2 team in the country. Yes, it was a blowout, but they only have one loss. Alabama, yes, their losses were combined of just 4 points. But they didn't have any really key wins. Their only ranked win was against Texas. At least if they're still ranked in the CFP right now, because Ole Miss, I think, has dropped out. Arkansas was a disappointment this year. They haven't had any, huge wins that can bolster their resume. And you can't keep TCU out. There was no way, because that would have, to me, that would have been robbery if you kept TCU. And I think it was the right move to put TCU at number 3. I know the committee is not I don't think the committee is really technically supposed to look at, okay, so who do we match up in the 2 semifinals? But if TCU played Georgia, I believe they would have been clobbered. Playing Michigan, especially because Georgia has the Peach Bowl, they get to play in their backyard yet again in the Mercedes Superdome, right? Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I don't know what it's exactly called, but the one in Atlanta. I think TCU definitely has a really good shot against Michigan. They can, I think both matchups will be very good. Very good. And we also have some good bowl matchups. I'm just coming off the top of my head. Alabama and Kansas State. That should be kind of interesting. See how Kansas State does bounce and, got the win, bounced back against TCU. And we'll see how Alabama does. Disappointing season. Utah and Penn State, I believe, will match up in the Rose Bowl. Penn State's the best Big Ten team. There's no way they're giving it to Purdue or anything. That will be a really interesting matchup. So there's the Cotton Bowl, I think, and Cotton Bowl in Texas. They'll have Tulane and probably Tennessee, maybe. I wonder if they've come out with the bowl with the bowls yet. Maybe, I think that might be later today. But let's go over the scores of championship weekend. Starting with Friday here. Let me make sure I'm all good on my set. Yeah. Starting with Friday. I was saying, USC should be on upset alert again. I thought this was going to be a close game, and I thought USC would be able to pull it out. Boy, was I wrong. USC had the lead 17-3, and Utah outscores USC the rest of the game 44-7. Utah's resilience. They were able to bounce back. They got a couple great little drives in that second quarter, bounce back and tie the game, and they never looked back after that. Caleb Williams was beaten up, and to me, I'll talk about the Heisman race in just a second. But to me, Utah showed their resilience. They played their game. They ran the ball right down USC. And the defense for the Trojans had no answer whatsoever. And when that Utah defense locked in on Caleb Williams, they found a way to contain him. They hurt him, and then they found a way to contain him. He couldn't really get out of the pocket that much. Really strained, his playmaking ability. Utah, a huge win. Second straight Pac-12 championship. That was their fourth Pac-12 championship appearance. I think Utah, looking at it, they are, the best program in the Pac-12 right now. There's some conversation to be had about USC and Oregon, but USC is about to go to the Big Ten. And they better start playing some defense. Because if they're giving up 47 points to a Utah team, no disrespect to Utah, but they do have 3 losses, and they lost to Florida. And there's that. But I do think their defense really needs to shapen up. And Lincoln Riley, he's not the biggest defensive-minded coach. He's more all offense. So we'll see what happens with USC and UCLA when they move to the Big Ten. To me, that still just baffles me because right after they move to the Big Ten, USC and UCLA, what happens? 12-team playoff, 2024. If USC and UCLA stayed, they would have had a much better chance of making the playoff if they'd stayed in the Pac-12. You guys are not, I don't think especially not UCLA. USC will see, but I've talked about this already. They gotta travel all the way to all those Big Ten schools. They gotta play in the cold. Imagine USC, Cali boys, going up and playing Michigan in the Big House in the cold, November, winter. My goodness, how is that gonna go? I don't think that's gonna go very well for you, USC. I just think they would have had a much better chance of the playoff if they stay in the Pac-12. Even if I think it's a little easier to win the Pac-12 than a Big Ten with not only your rival UCLA, but also Ohio State and Michigan, who we see in the playoff already right now. Penn State, who's just outside looking in. And a lot of teams like Illinois, Purdue, sometimes Iowa, they like to go for that, upset trap. Even if USC, couldn't win a Pac-12 championship one year, take for example this year, they would still maybe be able to get in as an at-large. Just 2 losses, 11-2. We'll see how far USC drops, and I'm interested to see how high Clemson climbs after their championship win. They dominate against North Carolina. I told you guys, Dabo Swinney's just got a thing for winning ACC championship games. I mean, no matter how the season goes, Clemson can win that conference championship game. They blew out North Carolina and just kind of had a bit of a collapse. And obviously, I've talked about it before. This program is not the same as they were when they were making the playoff, and that is, obvious because they're on the outside looking in at this point. Georgia puts up 50 against LSU. They put up a 50 bomb against LSU in their backyard again. Look, I think you could make a really good argument for Stetson Bennett, and I'll get into that in a second, for Heisman. You put up 50 against LSU, and this is a good defense. This is a good LSU defense. And this loss from the past couple losses from LSU really hurt Alabama's chances as well, because the more LSU is losing, the more that loss looked bad. Michigan, they dominate against Purdue. They are, if anyone's going to contend with Georgia for a back-to-back championship, it's Michigan, because they just look so complete. Donovan Edwards able to step in for Blake Corum. He's doing great. JJ McCarthy, he has been the right choice for Michigan. And then this one, Kansas State and TCU. Another upset trap. TCU was actually down, I believe it was like 28 to 13, I believe, at one point. They were able to come back, tie the game up, then they lose it against Kansas State. Luckily for them, they just stay in the same spot because, hey, other teams lost. And really, this was a really chaotic and competitive year in college football, where there wasn't just 4 undefeated teams or 4 just one-loss conference champ teams. Just put them in there like previous years. And then Tulane is able to beat UCF, win their first American championship game. Hats off to them. They were 10-2. I actually didn't know this. They were 10-2 last season. What a turnaround for the Green Wave. My only issue with them is, one, what is their logo, and 2, why are their jerseys blue when they're the Green Wave? I don't know. Maybe here, let's see if they have a picture. Let's see if they have any pictures, but they're wearing these light blue jerseys when they're the Green Wave. What's up here? There might be like a video here or something. Wait for the PlayStation ad. But anyway, hats off to them. They beat UCF, who I believe UCF had beaten them earlier in the season. I thought it was going to be Tulane and Cincinnati. I'll have to look at that again. But yeah, see, they got these light blue Ole Miss looking jerseys. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's kind of a small screen, but yeah. Hats off to them. They're going to the, I believe, the Cotton Bowl. I believe. I'm still interested to see kind of the bowl, projections and all of that. But despite the two big upsets, things worked out. USC again had it. The Pac-12 is allergic to the playoff. My goodness, USC, Oregon, those two teams had to do was win, and you're in. At least for Oregon, they had it. They had an early stumble against Georgia, but they were looking good, turning around. Lost to Washington, and then lost to Oregon State. And USC, they've had trouble against Utah. I think in the past 3 or 4 matchups, Utah has beaten USC, and I guess they're the Trojan Killers for a reason. This whole thing about how Nick Saban is disappointed Alabama didn't get into the College Football Playoff. Your team didn't play very good, Nick Saban. Look, this has been like the most penalized Alabama team. They most penalized Alabama team in a while. Not enough really great weapons around Bryce Young. Not like last year. Last year you had guys like Jamison Williams. And, with like Tua and Jalen Hurts, they had guys like Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy. And the defense, you expect more out of this defense. They didn't come through. It'll be interesting to see how Alabama plays in their bowl game, because whenever they're not playing for a national championship, it's just a disappointment. I mean, as simple as that. And honestly, I don't think they should really even be ranked number 5. What about Clemson? What about Tennessee? What about Penn State? All those teams, you can make the case that they should be ahead of Alabama in the rankings. Yeah. I'm going to try to find the bowl, Capital One Bowl Mania. What is this? I'm trying to find bowl games. Matchups are coming out later. So maybe I'll do a separate video for that or something. But wow. Great final week of college football. Hats off to Utah. Hats off to TCU, able to stay in there. Ohio State should be sending Utah flowers for that one. They didn't. They were sitting at home, and they got it. They just get in by default. Really disappointing. Let's go over the Heisman race now. I'm going to look a couple things up. But the Heisman race has been really, up and down all over the place this year. Really kind of unclear. At one point you're thinking, maybe Blake Corum, he goes down, he gets injured, he's out. Let's see. See if we can find some here. 2022 season. No, we don't want the ad. Oh my gosh, okay. Go away, ad. Okay. Okay, finally. All right. I'm just trying to look up Bennett's stats here. going into his stats, this year he actually hasn't had as good of a year in terms of touchdown passes, but the yards have been up over 3,000 yards, almost 3,500 yards passing. He's led a very prolific offense, an offense that put up 50 on LSU, one of the best defenses in the country. You could definitely make a case for Stetson Bennett. And also Caleb Williams. The losses to Utah, they hurt, especially this last one. But he did get injured. He's hobbling around the field. He's trying to make it work against the Utes in the championship there. But he was trying to make it work, and you could still give it to him. I think Bryce Young's kind of out of the race. Blake Corum out of the race. Maybe Duggan for TCU. Maybe you can make a case for him. He's been kind of in the conversation, kind of just on the outside, really, though. I think it's going to be going down to Caleb Williams and Stetson Bennett. Let's look up Caleb Williams' stats just to compare real quick. See the yards and the attempts and all of that. This is just the stats for... Okay. There we go. So yeah, Caleb Williams has 4,000 yards passing. He hit that 4,000 yard mark. His completions percentage 66% versus Stetson Bennett, who he's got 67%. They're pretty even in terms of most stats. But Caleb Williams, 37 touchdown passes, an average of 9 yards a pass, only 4 interceptions. I think, looking at it, I think 3 or even all 4 were against Utah. Utah has been his kryptonite. He's passed it more than Bennett, I believe. 488 attempts versus Bennett's 396. So just looking at the stats, you should give it to Caleb Williams. He's just got Jordan Addison. I don't think there's any other kind of like NFL talent like that around him. Just like, in terms of receivers. Whereas Georgia, you got, 5-star, first round, second round, third round draft picks all around you. So I think you should still give it to Caleb Williams. Yes, he did not have a really great game, through the interception. But, looking at the game, he still threw for almost 400 yards. He still had a 68 completion percentage. He was getting sacked a bit more than usual, though. He had the interception. But still, I think Caleb Williams, give it to him for the Heisman. I'm trying to think. Yeah, when the bowl games come out, I might do a video on that, and also look for a video on top 5 most surprising teams and top 5 most disappointing teams of the season. I'm going to be coming out with that very soon. Also, hats off to USA. The loss to Netherlands, tough. But Netherlands are a really good team, and US they just didn't have the ball a lot. It looked like, I couldn't watch that game. I was doing an SAT test. But anyway, tough for the USA, tough for USC. But hats off to great seasons and a great turnaround to teams like TCU and Tulane. The resilience of Utah. Let's go and look at Utah's overall kind of season here. They started out with a close, tough loss to Florida in the swamp. Florida, obviously, they didn't turn out to be very good, but that environment, going all the way to the East Coast for that one. I believe next year Florida might have to come to Salt Lake City, and that's going to be a problem for Florida. I think home field advantage has shown its worth in the season. Utah lost to UCLA. That was a disappointing one, and then lost to Oregon. Those were their two conference losses. And they weren't very blowouts or anything. All of their losses, you're looking at 3-point loss to Florida, 10-point loss at UCLA. That's when UCLA was really rolling. And then just a 3-point loss to Oregon. Cam Rising did not play very well at all in that game. But he was able to turn it around against USC and play upset. It's the number 4 team in the country. But my playoff, predictions. Let's see. We got Michigan and TCU. I got Michigan probably in like a 10-point game, I'd say. I think TCU is going to make it close at first, but Michigan will pull away and head to their first college football playoff national championship. Georgia and Ohio State, I could see this one being pretty close, for sure. I could definitely see this one being close. I think the difference maker will be Georgia's defense. We've seen that Georgia's defense can show up against a team like Tennessee. They showed up. They showed up, and Ohio State's defense, especially in the secondary, it's got some question marks. And I see Georgia repeating as champions. They're just that good. Kirby Smart has brought Georgia to another level, and it's shown with the consistency this season. Yeah. I think that's going to be it. I titled this maybe the final episode of season 2 of College Football Weekly. I don't know. We'll see. Definitely I'm going to be still doing more podcasts. We're getting deep into the NFL season now, and be on the lookout for those videos on the YouTube channel. Might post them on Spotify or whatever. But yeah, make sure to if you're listening to this over on Spotify, Apple, Google, make sure to leave a 5-star review. And if you are watching this on the replay on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. And let me know what your thoughts are on the playoffs. Should Alabama have made it in? Should TCU have moved down a spot for losing? What are your thoughts on that? Personally, I think they got it right. Despite the kind of chaos, I guess you could say, with TCU and USC losing. But yeah, thank you all for watching and listening. Peace.